Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Gina. Oh my gosh. I'm trying to go live on Instagram. I will stop saying that. I'm just going to go on my phone or send the recording there. Oh, I think it's going to work. Cool. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me. And I am doing 100 days live and talking about fertility, which is amazing. It's one of my absolutely favorite things to talk about all day long. Periods, bloating, symptoms, like all the things, egg quality. That's what we're going to talk about today. And where did it go? We are on day 5. And if you check in the box, check in the links, there is a link to join my private live on a Zoom call every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. So definitely do that because we can go a lot deeper and it's nice to give some privacy. So you can ask questions there. You're welcome to ask questions here. I have a couple cameras going with channels. So if I don't see your question, then just post it under the video and I'll get a notification, or DM me if you don't want to ask it publicly. But the best thing would be to jump into those live private Zooms every Wednesday. And I already posted the link in the comments. Okay. So why am I doing 100 days live? Because I want to, and I'd like to meet you. And if there's anybody else that you know, a lot of times friends are trying to get pregnant around the same time, or you met somebody else in a group, then be sure to share the link with them, because I'd love to have you and your friend or your friends in the group. That would be amazing. So let's talk about egg quality. And something came up today. Give me 1 second here. Something came up today. Somebody had asked me a question for the live of, she's 42 years old. Can't find all the details, but she's 42 years old and she's been trying to get pregnant for a few years. She already has a couple kids. Why can't she get pregnant? Why is often I have patients or clients say, it was so easy the first time I got pregnant, or I have 2 other kids. How come I can't get pregnant now? Well, that's because our hormones constantly change. And especially after you go through getting pregnant, sustaining a beautiful pregnancy, and then having a delivery, depending on your age, it can take a long time to recover. And what I see is often women are not recovered. And some people say, oh, after 3 months, after 6 months, you're fine. But for many women, even after a year, I still technically consider them postpartum because their blood hasn't recovered. You can tell their hormones are up and down in fluctuation. And that's a challenge when you're trying to get pregnant, or if you haven't been able to conceive. That is a big challenge, and those are the red flags. So people say, oh, I want to know, what do? I got to do this, that. No. Just pick one thing. And so what I like to do when I start to work with people, and I recommend whomever you're working with, or if you're thinking about working with somebody, and hopefully you join my live and I can help you set this up. But I love for women to come and say, okay, look, I have no idea what to do. Perfect. The first thing that we need to do is grab a journal. I know, but just spend like 5 minutes on it a day. At the end of the day, I like to write. In the morning, I like to write first things like personal goals or professional goals, that kind of thing. But for you, this is fertility goals. This is your fertility health journal. And the best thing to do is write, where am I at right now? What are my struggles? What are my questions? What's my menstrual cycle like? What is my energy like? How's my gut? Do I have problems going to the bathroom? Do I have cramps? Do I get migraines? Do I get headaches? Don't worry about, I don't know if this is considered related to fertility or not, because guess what? Everything is. Everything is. You're like a tree, okay? Picture a tree. I'm like looking outside because I have trees outside my window. But picture a tree with all of the roots and then all the leaves and then the bark and everything. And if you're not able to get pregnant, or right now, just for now, you're having a challenge getting pregnant, you don't know what to work on. We can work on a few things, but we need to know what they are first. So the roots are going to be the foundation. And that's going to be, how is your general health, right? And then we look at, of course, are you ovulating regularly? How can we tell? There's different symptoms. Are you menstruating regularly? And that will give so much information. And then we start digging deeper and deeper, but I want to keep it simple for you. So first thing in the morning or at night, like, how did my day go? How overall did you feel in your day? Did you feel tired? Did you feel wonderful? Did you feel pretty even keel throughout the day? How many meals did you eat? What time did you eat breakfast? Did you skip breakfast? How much water did you drink all day? How much do you weigh? I usually, when I work with clients, and again, like anything I say in these videos, please check with your doctor or whomever you're working with. I just recommend drinking half of your weight in ounces. So if you weigh 150 pounds and you're shooting for 75 ounces of water, that's a general guide and rule of thumb. Now, if you're heavy on exercise, then you're going to need to drink more water. It's as simple as that. But it's best to work with someone. And again, back to the roots. If there's something going on with your roots, it's going to show up on the leaves. Those are going to be the symptoms. Those are going to be, I'm not ovulating. Those could be, I have PCOS. Why? What's causing the PCOS? Why do I have endometriosis? These are all the things that we need to look at, because if we just keep cutting back the leaves going, oh, that one's dried, or that one's moldy, or that one's just not growing, and we just keep cutting them, they're going to keep growing in the same. So we have to get to the root cause of the problem to see, where's the imbalance coming from? Most often it's coming from not getting enough nutrition or nutrients from food. And in that case, then you would look at supplements or vitamins and herbal medicine. But if you have sensitive digestion, or your gut biome is not healthy, or there's inflammation in your gut, guess what? You're going to have inflammation in your womb. So then it's like, okay, this is getting really confusing. That's why you work with somebody. Look, I've been a holistic doctor, and I have been working with patients for, including clinic, over 25 something years now. And I've helped over 2,000 women to get pregnant. And I will tell you, even recently, I was like, I'm tired of prescribing to myself, and I have the access and the information, but sometimes we need to stand back because we're so in it every day, 24 minutes a day, that we need somebody who's not attached to our thoughts and our lifestyle to say, oh, okay, look, here's a red flag. Here's another red flag. Let's just hone in on this. I did that recently with my health because I thought, you know what? I have so many years, and sometimes I get attached to how I was 5 years ago, or even 1 year ago, or 15 years. I'll let go. That's been under control for 15, 20 years. I don't need to deal with that. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, that's been going on for a while now. How come I didn't see it? We need help. All of us need an outsider and an educated, experienced opinion. I can be that for you. And that's why if you're watching this, or if you're watching the replay, pop in some questions. I'm looking, I don't see anything right now. Sometimes there's a delay, but pop in questions here or join the live. There's links, and I'll post more links after. Every Wednesday I go live private on Zoom inside my free fertility community. So pop in there. Okay, so back to the roots. What are we going to look at? When I work with clients or patients, what am I asking them? I'm asking them, send me a food diary or a food journal. It depends on the person, what their symptoms are. The symptoms would be the leaves. So send me a diary or a journal of your food intake. We start there. And we drill in and we go deeper and deeper. But I want to know the time you're eating breakfast, the time you're eating lunch, the time you're eating dinner. What are you eating? I don't want you to all of a sudden clean everything up, because then I'll go, well, that doesn't make sense. This looks like a nice, clean diet. Just leave it in there. There's no judgment, but it'll help me to see where to add some things in, where to take some things out. Sometimes you're eating all the right foods, but it's erratic, and we need a regular schedule. And inside my free community, you'll see I call it intermittent fasting, but it's more about timed eating schedules. Our bodies prefer structure. So that's one thing I really dive deep into. And then we look at which fertility foods would be best for you or for any woman that I'm working with. I'm not going to there's lists of foods, but there's also different symptoms or different patterns and health diagnoses within frameworks that say, for somebody, a salad might be exactly what they need. But guess what? Salad is not good for everybody, especially somebody with irritable bowel disease or endometriosis and they get loose stool at their period or throughout or during ovulation, sometimes we can't break it all down. So there are different elements that we look for in people to say, no, raw broccoli or even raw spinach, which is much easier to digest, is not good for everybody. Maybe you need to saute your vegetables, or maybe you need to focus all on dark leafy greens, less on the higher sugar vegetables like carrots and, well, even in rooted like sweet potatoes, that kind of thing. So that's a whole other conversation. But again, looking at the root, we want to set you up to have your gut healthy. Gut biome is crucial for every single piece of health. It always comes back to the gut. And I'm not talking acute, like, you hurt your back or your neck or something, or you have like an injury. That's different. But we're talking for general health, but I specialize in women's health. So I look at the gut health, and if there's any symptoms there, if there's bloating with or without eating, if digestion gets worse after you eat, sometimes it gets better when women eat. If you have spicy food is really bad for some people and it's helpful for others. So that's what we have to determine, like, what is going on with the gut? Why is there inflammation? What is causing that? And it can be lifestyle. Often it's related to foods that we assume and think, oh, this is healthy. So, we have to like audit. That's a good word, right? We have to audit that. Oh, hi, Terria. I'm so glad that you're on this because I screwed up the link earlier, but I did address your questions. So you got to check that out. Okay, well then let's talk. I have about 5 more minutes before I have to get onto a call. But let's talk about diet. Okay, since you're on here live, you're saying, I got the worst diet. No, you don't. Or maybe you do. Here. I am new on this software, so I apologize. Oh, wait, maybe you don't want that up there. Let's just put your hi. Anyway, okay, so the first thing that I recommend my clients or my patients is to get a journal or a food journal or just a fertility journal in general. And I don't want you or anybody else to get lost in, I have so much to do. I know that you want to focus on egg quality. And again, we have to go back to the gut biome. So for yourself, again, like there is no judgment. And I honestly, I prefer, if I'm going to look at your diet here soon and look at the journal, I prefer for you to eat normally and then and just write everything down. And if the more days that you can give me, but an absolute minimum of 3 days. But again, like try to journal for 7 days. And it doesn't have to be this like super neat, like I don't know if you saw it earlier, but I was just showing books and journals that I use for different goals, but just pick up a notepad or something cheap. You can use a little guy. I like the big ones because then I can draw diagrams and questions that I have off to the side. So start your journal and maybe follow 3 things. Okay. You survive off coffee and sweets. No problem. Okay. So what I want you to do for yourself, and then this is helpful if hopefully we get to chat again about, and I can look at it specifically, but everybody will want to take a journal and just do a couple columns, and then you can just go morning, afternoon, evening, or you can say breakfast, lunch, dinner. But I also want to know when you're snacking. You said that you like to have some sweets. That's good information. Because, well, let me put a pin in that. I'm going to come back to that because I really want you to hear about the sweets piece. So write down what time you're eating. Like maybe you wake up and you're like, oh, I got to go and I'm eating at 7 a.m. today. And then maybe tomorrow you're like, oh, I actually missed breakfast, but I ate lunch at 11. Right. Like just write the time, what you're eating. How do you feel later? Okay. That might feel like too much. But give yourself 5 minutes. Sit down for 5 minutes. I need some details. Time of eating, what you're eating. And then how do you feel? And that could be throughout the day. I mean, you may have lunch at 12 o'clock and then at 2 o'clock, you're like, I'm so tired. Or right after lunch at 12:30, you might say, gosh, I've got bloating. I got all this discomfort in my gut. Those are all symptoms. And it could be like different growths or yeast or inflammation that's causing that, or there's lack of blood circulation in the area. Thank you. Yeah, you're going to love this because a lot of times when people write journals, they're like, it's kind of boring. But it's actually really cool because you can start to see patterns when you have like a really nice lunch. And I think that you already got, okay, Minnesota. I think you're an hour ahead of me. Okay, cool. So whenever it's convenient for you, you can do it the next morning, and then you can do it the next morning and review the day if you work late. Oh, midnight. Oh, shoot. Okay. It's perfect. I have a lot of patients or clients that are flight attendants and they have really erratic schedules, or a ton of my patients that when I used to work in Louisville in Colorado, a lot of them were night nurses. And that is really tricky because sleep can be a problem. I think for most people that have graveyard shift. I used to do that when I was younger in my 20s. It totally messed up my menstrual cycle and I developed migraines and a lot of other things that actually, I won't get into my whole thing, but it really messed me up and it really messed up my periods and my hormones overall. And at first I didn't notice it. And then by the time it showed up, it had already turned into a pattern under the surface, which is really difficult because you're like, I've been fine for a year or 2 years doing this. But all of a sudden it's like, no, you weren't. These are building blocks. So we can build positive blocks or we can take and lose the positive blocks. And that's what happens when we have erratic sleep or sleep that we just can't get used to. And some people say, oh, I'm so used to it. I've been doing this for 10 years or whatever. But most bodies, women and men, but I would say women more specifically, cannot handle not sleeping at nighttime. But there's things that we could work on to help with that, to build the blood back up. And I don't want it to get too confusing. So let's get back. I mean, I was just about to go, but off on a whole tangent. There's so much to learn about food, but specifically sleep patterns and different times of day for sleep. I'll tell you this one thing, but then your head might go, awesome. You're all in. Okay. So really quickly on the circadian rhythms, right? So in Chinese medicine, where is my foundational medicine training, 2 hours goes to each organ in the clock. So there's specific organs that are correlated with fertility, being kidneys, liver, and spleen. I don't want to lose you here. So I'm just going to say blood health is so crucial and so important. And what I'll do is I actually have a video on the importance of blood for getting pregnant and how to focus on that. So after the video, I'll go in and I'll pull the link and I'll pop it in there and I'll tag you, or actually I'll put it in our private group because I saw that you popped in there today. I'll put it in there and then you won't lose it in the YouTube comments. But liver time is overnight. So if you are awake during liver time, you're depleting. There isn't opportunity for blood to get replenished. Does that make sense? Liver stores the blood. And if there isn't rest at the time when that organ needs to quiet itself, it gets more and more depleted. So possibly there can turn into be a vacuity, or what we can say is like a deficiency in the blood. And that is pulling and impacting egg quality. That's what I would say is a red flag. That's the area that I would work on. How do we replenish the blood supply and blood circulation so the rest of your body, including your womb, is getting enough blood, high quality blood, and the blood circulation is consistent? Okay, cool. Makes sense. Awesome. Oh, it's populating. Okay, that's what I would work on. So specific foods to do that are going to be, I would say, keep it easy on your digestion. I have no idea. I do not know your medical status, except for a little bit that you shared with me. But for all women, it's like, make sure you check with your doctor because I can't sit here and give recommendations. I'm not your doctor, but I can tell you when I've had other patients where either they were working night shifts and we had to improve blood overall. There's specific foods, there's specific stress reduction exercises. When the liver gets deficient, it gets tense and tightens up, and then the circulation doesn't work well. So we have to keep the liver happy and functioning properly so it can supply. The other thing is, let me get back to your sweets, which is a comment a little bit ago. I didn't forget about it. Craving sweets is imbalance showing of the spleen. Now, when I'm talking about organs, I do not mean in a Western sense that there's something wrong with your spleen. Okay. Sometimes it overlaps from a Western diagnosis point of view, like a stance. But oftentimes we can just say, look, these are the patterns that show up with a spleen deficiency or dampness in the body. And possibly that would look like bloating, gas. Okay. Yeah. I mean, so you're asking, what do I feel about parasite cleanse? Okay. It depends. Now, where I would start, if you're thinking like, hey, maybe, oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, that totally makes sense to me. So you're saying that you've got all that, and there's a lot more like fatigue, energy dipping in the afternoon. Sometimes it's all day, sometimes it's morning and afternoon. But yeah, bloating, gas, loose stool, weepy. There's different things that happen when you've got a deficiency that's showing up in a traditional Chinese medicine sense. Yeah. Okay. All right. So parasite cleanse. Yeah, because the thing is, when you eat sweets, they're addictive, right? And it's just like, oh, you eat it and then you're like, I'm not quite satisfied, so I'm going to eat a little bit more, or it comes up and then you have the crash of energy anyway. But then what can happen is you start to grow, have like yeast or just, yeah. I'm looking for comments. Yeah. Okay. So that it offsets, and then the hormones get damp. Dampness feels like heavy, like you're wearing like picture yourself. This is the first thing that comes into my head is like you dip your sweatsuit. If you get sweatpants and a hoodie, you dip that into water and then you put it on. That's energetically maybe what you feel like. I don't know. There's other ways to visualize it. And you got fibroids. Yeah. Okay. So fibroids, again, I don't know your health background, but fibroids are definitely, they represent dampness in the spleen. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. So fibroids for sure. Yeah. So I mean, what if a patient comes to me or a client comes to me and they've got fibroids and they have all the symptoms of spleen dampness? Oh, okay. Yeah. I would start with the diet. As far as a parasite cleanse, I don't know. I don't know if you have parasites. You'd have to get tested for that. I wouldn't just go off and I would never have a patient or a client go and do a parasite cleanse if we didn't know if they truly had them. Oftentimes you can have the symptoms of parasites. Yeah, but it doesn't mean that you've got them. Okay, so I would get an actual test, and that's where I would start. But get that started, set up an appointment, get tested for that, and then you would go on a specific cleanse for that or a treatment. Because if you have parasites or if you have an infection or if you have something else that's happening like that, that needs to be addressed because your hormones can't be in balance when you've got some trigger happening. So I would take care of that first. If you don't have parasites, this is where I would start. If you have them or don't have them, I would go on a bland diet and everything to nourish the spleen and the stomach. Okay. Because the spleen is important. It wants to receive the food and accept the nutrients from foods and also be able to digest them and send them everywhere else in your body. So if the spleen is damp or it feels deficient or you've got weakness in digestion, it's not able to accept food and properly process the nutrients from that food and share it with the rest of the body. that is exactly. So it's so nice. That's how it's nice to kind of work through with somebody and go, what's going on? What are your other symptoms? Not saying like, oh, I've got low ovarian reserve, or I have poor egg quality. Well, why is that? So possibly this is the reason that you're having this experience. Okay. So for example, I don't know if you have allergies, that kind of thing, and that's okay. But you can go. I think you have the free fertility meal plan. So I would start there and look at some of the ideas for the breakfast, the lunch, the dinner, and snacks. And yours is going. Oh, I don't know what you're saying now, too. Maybe you don't have the free plan. If you don't have, I've got a 3-day, I believe, fertility meal plan. If you want that and you don't have it, let me know. I think it's in the free. Oh, no allergies. Okay, good. All right, perfect. So in the morning, or first of all, you'd have to figure like morning for you. So I'm not going to say 7 a.m. It just depends on when you eat your breakfast, lunch, dinner, how that is in your day. But I would do like poached eggs. They're easier to digest. And you can do poached eggs and sauteed or steamed spinach or kale. But it has to be steamed. It can't be raw. I would not be eating raw foods. Somebody that comes to me with spleen deficiency, the first thing I say is no raw foods, no iced drinks, no cold drinks, nothing too spicy. Okay. And then I don't know if you've got sensitivity to dairy. Some people do. It can be a little bit. I would even maybe cut that out for a few days. Except yogurt is really helpful for probiotics and even prebiotics. Like I have a little sparkling drink that has added prebiotics. Those can be helpful. And then as far as lunch or dinner, then you're looking at more. Okay, good. Yeah, I don't like ice drinks unless it is blazing hot, like 100 plus, which we don't really get in Colorado. Well, I guess some areas do. Anyway, sipping on ginger, fresh ginger, grated up, turmeric, grated up. That's good for inflammation in the gut. That's where I would start. And then lunch and dinners are going to be sauteed, steamed vegetables. Focus on dark leafy greens as long as they don't upset your stomach. Broccoli can be a little intense to digest, so you may want to go with some kale and or spinach, chard. Ah, these are really good things. Beets. Beets are really good for blood. They're bright red. Anything that's like dark and rich in color, most likely is going to nourish the blood. So I would start there, and that's going to help build your gut back. If you're really in a pinch and like, oh my gosh, no, it's really bad. I've got really bad bloating. It's every day. It's every meal, something like that. Then you might make a congee, which is a very gooey rice. So instead of doing 2-to-1, it's 5 or 6-to-1 cups of water. Or I would use vegetable broth or chicken broth, vegetable broth if you're vegetarian. And I would eat little, spoonfuls of that. That's if it's really extreme. There's so much more that you can do. Teria. Am I saying your name correctly? I'm going to look and see if you say yes or no. Teria. And if not, I hope to meet you in person. And then you can tell me. Okay, you do a beet smoothie with ginger apples. And I know so many people are into the whole raw. What would be a better option based on what you're telling me is sauteing the beets, not having them raw. They're so hard to digest. Teria. That's a really beautiful name, Teria. It's funny, my last name's Terranoni, so I think that's where I was getting stuck. Teria. It's a beautiful name. And okay, so beet smoothie with ginger and apples. So in the summer, you may be able to get away with that, but it's in the winter. It's beautiful. Yeah, beets are wonderful for your blood, and ginger and apples. So here's the before and after picture of that. Instead of having a beet smoothie with raw ginger, raw apples, slide it over and do sauteed beets. And you could even cook up the apples, or you could put a little bit applesauce on top of that. And you can grate raw ginger. That's fine. But I like to do, and I've had like a lot of videos on this. This is one of my favorite things. It treats and helps so many things. is for inflammation and for blood circulation, which is perfect, especially when somebody's trying to get pregnant. Warm the womb. So grate up ginger, turmeric, and then steep that in hot or boiling water. You can do like 8 ounces or 16 ounces. Put it in a thermos when you go to work overnight. Sip on that all night. And then it's constant, a little bit of medicine for your circulation and to decrease inflammation, because it sounds like possibly there's some inflammation in the gut. Yeah. Okay. Oh my gosh. There's so much more I've got to say, but I'm looking at the clock and I've got a 12 o'clock in 3 minutes. Yeah. Well, it was good to see you on here, and I'd rather do this in person. So I hope to see you next Wednesday, and pop some questions into the group. And that was a super long live. I appreciate anybody else who's watching and not commenting. Thank you so much. If you're watching this on the replay, I'm going to put a link in the private Zoom. You see what I just did with Taria? Yeah, awesome. Awesome. I'm sorry about the mix up with the scheduling. Taria, that's wonderful. Who's this? Glamour Whisper. I'll have to check you out. I don't know what that means. I will see you next week. Thanks. But I look forward to seeing all of you. Check out the link, join the private group, because guess what? You wouldn't have to wait until Wednesday for us to do this. I hope to see you soon. Thank you so much for watching.